When you think of kings of the Mali Empire, the first one that comes to mind is the vastly wealthy Mansa Musa, isn't it? Or is it the founding king, the heroic Sunjata Keita? But what if I told you that there was another king who also achieved great things? Let me introduce you to Abubakari, the voyager-king. King Abubakari was the leader of the Mali Empire at a time when it had achieved great territorial expansion, amassed wealth, and was full of peace. It is amidst this prosperity that the king decided to set off on a voyage across the Atlantic Ocean towards South America. What pushed the king on this dangerous journey? None before him had dared to start. How did he do it? Watch on to discover more, and don't forget to subscribe to Timbuktu Tales.
The sun climbed high over the arid lands as the great Mali Empire basked in the dry heat of the day. A relentless, molten eye in the vast Malian sky, the sun burned so fiercely that both people and animals sought the nearest shade as they begged for its merciful descent. Yet it was just the morning. Its light, which had baked the palace yard for 16, now cast long, distorted shadows from the high circular wall that enclosed the royal compound. Next to the cluster of domed buildings made of sun-baked earth, adorned with protruding timber beams, flowed a river that snaked through the desert, its waters whispering tales of a vast ocean far beyond. The people of Mali told tales that beyond the endless sands, the river slipped silently into a vast, untamed ocean, one so immense its crashing tides seethed with secrets no man had yet comprehended. A massive baobab tree dominated the central yard, its gnarled branches shading the king's court. Beneath it stood the pempi, a low platform with 3 steps, carpeted with the finest silk and adorned with plush cushions embroidered in gold thread. Above the pempi soared an umbrella, a pavilion of crimson silk crowned with a golden bird the size of a falcon, casting a regal shadow and poised as if ready to take flight. This is where King Abubakar II held his audience. Today, the palace yard buzzed with whispered anticipation. Seated around the shadow of the gigantic tree, the great baobab, whose branches stretched like outstretched arms over the court, sat throngs from all corners of the empire. Nobles in fine cotton, merchants from the northern deserts still dusty from their travels, military commanders with stern faces, and commoners who had crawled forward to present their petitions. They had brought him all manner of issues for his judgment: disputes over cattle, reports of skirmishes on the far eastern edges with the Songhai, the expected arrival of a salt caravan from the north, the tedious family squabbles of regional lords. Every person looked toward the palace door, awaiting the king's arrival. From a quiet palace doorway at the corner, the king emerged dressed in a white robe, a velvety red tunic layered on top of it flowing as he moved. A golden skull cap sat upon his head, its edges bound by a gold band, ending in sharp points that looked like knife points. In his hand he carried a bow, and on his back hung a quiver heavy with arrows, symbols of his imperial military power. He walked slowly and with a stern face, looking straight ahead at the baobab tree beneath which his regal seat was placed. His griot Siddiqui, carrying a kora, led the way. The griot was closely followed by a small troupe of musicians, their fingers deftly plucking silver and gold 2-string guitars, while some struck talking drums, filling the air with melodies that rippled like the river water itself. At the base of the pempi, Siddiqui, a lean man in flowing cloth, his face carved by years of stories and songs, climbed the first 2 steps and took up position beneath the king's right side. The griot stood still, steady as the baobab's own roots. The assembly hushed. The king walked at the tune of this melody. Abubakari walked with deliberate slowness, pausing occasionally, his presence commanding ultimate attention. The king's slow, deliberate movements were measured like a preacher ascending a pulpit to pronounce sacred words. Behind the king followed 300 soldiers, their armor glinting in the bright sun, silent and steady as stone pillars. They followed each of his movements, starting and stopping as he did, ever watchful. Their polished spears, raised high into the air, shone like lamps in a dark night. The king's gaze swept across the crowd, lords in embroidered robes, caravan masters dusted from desert highways, merchants whose goods ranged from gold dust to rare spices, and common folk seeking justice or favor. The king seated himself on the pempi, small cushions soft beneath his weight. As he took his seat, drums thundered, trumpets blared, and bugles sang. The court came to life. The audience, seated in a circle around the great tree, settled into respectful silence. 3 servants darted off with messages to summon the sovereign's deputies and commanders, who soon filtered in, seated under the shade of date palms nearby. 2 saddled horses were brought forward with great ceremony, alongside 2 goats, tokens intended to ward off the evil eye and ill fate during the day's proceedings. The court began immediately. A sprawling array of voices discussing battles at the empire's farthest reaches, rumors of trade caravans laden with salt and gold, family disputes among the lords, and grievances of traders and farmers. From dawn until the sun began its slow descent, matters of state, justice, and commerce unraveled before the king's keen eyes. The court droned on. Save for a brief break for lunch and prayer, the proceedings went on all day long. From dawn until the sun dipped low, Abubakari listened, his griot relaying messages, his commanders offering counsel. Yet his mind wandered. His mind remained far from these routine affairs. He waited for the one news he was looking forward to. He strained for the one final messenger who never came. The scout returning from the edge of the empire, sent to watch over the green sea of darkness, the mysterious waters beyond the desert and the river where his heart truly lay. He had sent scouts, his most trusted men, months ago to the western edge of his domain, to the place where the great river Senegal met the vast, terrifying Atlantic Ocean. He waited for any word, any sign. None arrived. The one report he truly awaited, the only one that mattered, never came. Finally, he raised a hand. Siddiqui immediately fell silent. "The court is dismissed," the griot announced, his voice echoing the king's unspoken weariness. As the orange sun faded into twilight, the king rose slowly and retreated into the palace chambers. The griot and the musicians walked ahead of him, and the soldiers behind him, just as they had during his arrival in the morning. After his departure, the assembly rose, bowed at the royal seat, and began to disperse, their murmurs fading into the evening air. Alone and restless in his chambers, the king sank upon a low divan and whispered to the shadows, "Ooh, how much I hate this. I wish I could achieve my dream of sailing instead of ruling." His eyes gleamed with a longing the empire could not satisfy. That night, sleep eluded him. His thoughts turned over and over, like the endless river, revolving around the boats he had not yet built and the distant waters that beckoned to him beyond the empire's known world. He turned and turned in bed, his mind wandering at his lifelong ambition to become a sailor. Abubakari was never meant to be king. Though the eldest grandson of Sunjata, the heroic founder of the Mali Empire, Abubakar's lineage traced through Sunjata's daughter, Faye, making his claim to the throne uncertain in the eyes of many. He was destined for lordship and command, but not the throne. Since his earliest of years, Abubakari was trained by the finest of soldiers. He was anchored into commander's life of spear and shield to serve the empire's armies. He was also schooled in all the arts and wisdom befitting a prince, tutored by griots and scholars, summoned from Timbuktu, Jenne, and other distant lands. What fascinated Abubakar most was not war or empire, but the knowledge of the sea, a great expanse of water rumored to stretch endlessly westward, where the sands met wave and sky. From a young age, tutors filled his mind with tales of a great sea at the empire's western edge, a body of water so vast it swallowed the horizon. Fishermen who sailed the river to the ocean spoke of its endless expanse, sparking wonder in the young prince. He sat for hours by the riverbanks, listening to fishermen who had sailed down the slow Niger and dared to ride ocean tides where the land vanished beyond the horizon. Their stories spoke of a water so vast, it stretched as far as the eye can see. "What sits on the other side?" the boy prince asked, his eyes wide with wonder, watching waves tug at the riverbank. "No one knows for sure," an old fisherman had replied, chewing on a stem of grass. "Some say giant monsters dwell there. Others believe it to be the kingdom of jinns, or lands inhabited by strange men beyond imagining. But none have seen it with their own eyes." "I will go and see," Abubakar declared, his gaze fierce and bright. The grizzled fishermen laughed, shaking their heads. "Impossible, boy. The sea is deeper and darker than the night skies. The winds and tides are cruel. Even the stars cannot guide a man lost upon it." Yet neither warnings nor scorn cooled Abubakar's burning yearning. Their laughter only fueled his obsession. Through his teenage years, as he trained as a warrior and scholar, the dream of the sea grew stronger. The dream lingered, growing with him through adolescence into manhood. It had remained with him through his training as a lord and commander, through marriages, through the birth of his children. The vision fueled him on, as even amidst battles alongside his uncle, King Salif Keita. He had fought alongside his uncle, King Salif Keita, expanding the empire's borders. All the while, he believed that once the battles were won and the kingdom was at peace, time to explore his dream would come. But fate had other plans. His uncle, the king, died suddenly and without a son. The crown, heavy and unexpected, was thrust upon Abubakari. "I want none of this," he confessed solemnly to his griot. "I am a commander, a sailor at heart, not a king. Honor demands it, my lord," the griot said quietly. "You are the eldest. The kingdom requires your leadership." His younger brother Musa spoke gently. "I will gladly serve you, Abubakar. You must accept for the good of Mali." And so it was. The boy who dreamed of the seas became king, but in his heart, the chains of power suffocated his spirit. Reluctantly, Abubakari took the throne, lamenting, "Why must I sit here while the sea waits?" he murmured. "Oh, how pitiful my fate. The king can do anything, yet can never travel as his heart desires." Only 2 years had passed under his rule, and already weariness weighed on him, heavier than armor. Each day, his childhood dream of sailing slipped further away, a distant star fading in the dawn. 2 long years on the Pempi, and every sunrise had seen his dream recede further, like a ship vanishing into a haze on the horizon. It was a pain sharper than any spear, a constant dull ache in his soul. Each evening, after a court session, he tossed and turned in bed, unable to find peace. This was one of those nights when he tossed and turned in his sleepless thoughts of the sea and its mysteries. Dawn was a pale smear in the sky when exhaustion finally claimed him. He fell into a deep, desperate slumber, and his dream was not of court or kingdom, but of water. Endless, boundless, beckoning water. The king had barely slept when a hand was placed on his shoulder, shaking him gently. "Wake up, my lord. My lord, wake up." It was his queen, her face etched with concern and excitement. "The messenger from the sea has arrived." Abubakari bolted upright. The fog of sleep vanished instantly. Abubakar was out of bed in a flash, his heart hammering against his ribs. "Bring him to me at once," he commanded, his heart racing as he prepared to meet the one person who could bring him closer to his lifelong dream. In the palace's cool meeting room, shaded from the heat of the day, stood the king, flanked by his trusted griot Siddiqui and his brother Musa, chief commander of the armies. Between them stood a scholar from distant lands, a traveler of harsh roads and savage seas, called to answer the king's burning questions. The scholar's face was etched with months of hardship, his eyes sharp with knowledge born of far horizons. He spoke gently. "Sultan, the waters at Mali's western border are not the end. The world has no end. It is shaped like a bottle gourd. If you trace a line upon a gourd, turning around its bulbous surface, you return to where you began." Abubakar's eyes gleamed. Understanding this, the great cycle of the earth, the endless loop of land and water. The king nodded, grasping the concept. "The ocean is a circle, and a man could sail its length and return to his starting place," the scholar said, voice calm but filled with wonder. The king needed no further convincing. He would not waste time on endless governance. "The future belongs to doers," he declared. "I shall achieve my dream." He turned to his brother. "Mali is strong. Our government is easy. Our estates loyal. I will lose no more time. We shall build a fleet. We shall explore the oceans and see that which lies beyond." Then he turned to the scholar, resolved that his kingdom was secure and that now his time would be devoted to a new campaign, one of exploration, discovery, and the horizon. "I command, build me a fleet," the royal voice thundered. Lastly, he turned to Siddiqui, the griot who had walked with him since his youthful days. He commanded, "Send messengers to every corner of the empire and beyond. Summon every man and woman skilled in boats, currents, winds, and the stars. Summon all who possess knowledge of watercraft, fishermen, navigators, boat builders. Let them all come to court. Call every man and woman who has the skills and courage to sail. Boatmen of the Niger, the Gambia, the Senegal, let them come forward. Send word to Lake Chad, to every place where men know how to build boats and read water and stars. Great rewards shall be theirs." Without stopping for a moment, the king stated his final decree. 400 boats shall be built. 200 will carry brave explorers and sailors. Each shall be accompanied by a supply ship packed with provisions for the journey. The griot Siddiqui nodded, bowed, and hurried to spread the decree. The proclamation spread like wildfire. Messengers were dispatched to the Niger, Gambia, and Senegal rivers, to Lake Chad and beyond, calling for boat builders, fishermen, and navigators. The court buzzed with excitement as theories and arguments clashed like seeds inside a shaker, each competing to produce the finest sound. Some argued that rivercraft would shatter against the sea's fury. A small boat, one woman who sailed along the coast on trade vessels to Ghana said, would be splintered to pieces like a twig caught in raging sandstorms. What was needed, she advocated, were big and strong boats, able to withstand the ocean's great storms. A fisherman from the coast spoke of a time he drifted to a barren island during a storm. The king's eyes lit up. An island? What was there? It was no great land, he said, but beyond it lies the true ocean, where vast worlds may await. Then he added, "The sea is not always a monster, my lord. There are seasons when it is still and smooth as a lake of glass. The danger is not the storm, but the great calms. A big ship can sit for days like a stone. And then what? Wouldn't all the supplies run out and our sailors be left at the mercy of the ocean and its monsters?" Discussions swirled. Should the ships rely on sails or oars? Big vessels or small craft? What designs would brave the ocean's moods? Which materials would be used? Should it be woods or reeds? How will the parts be connected with one another? And the supplies, some asked, what needed to be included? Dried meat and grains and fruits were obvious. Isn't that not what the traders of the caravans on the Sahara carried? But how much of it was needed to sustain people on the ocean? And of the trade goods, if there were people on the opposite side of the ocean, would they find any use for salt and gold, as did the people on the opposite side of the Sahara? Or would it all be useless to them? What of defenses? What weapons were needed to defend against the monsters of the sea, should they come across them? The king listened intently, his excitement growing. Seeing the validity in all arguments, the king took no chances. His fleet would reflect the diversity of his empire, a multitude of vessels, designs, and ideas, all united by one goal. "There will be no single design," he announced. "We will build many kinds. My fleet will be like my kingdom, diverse, strong, and united under one purpose. 400 boats shall be built, 200 for exploration, each accompanied by a supply boat laden with food, water, and goods for trade." The great task of gathering all the resources needed to bring King Abubakari's vision to life was left upon his younger brother, Musa. Commander of the royal armies and able administrator, Musa was always the one more interested in such matters of governance. Had it not been for the fact that Abubakari was older and honor demanded that he ascend to the throne, he would have gladly given up the kingship for Musa. Musa gathered his most trusted lieutenants and together meticulously planned the construction of the ships as if it was a military expedition. They brought in all the scholars from the main cities across the vast empire and tasked them with calculating the quantity of resources needed for any given task. How many pieces of timber would be needed? How about metal strips? How much needed to be forged? As for the grains, food, and other supplies for the long trip, how much would be sufficient? Musa went to the farmlands and spoke with the farmers. What would it take to produce and stock the amounts of grains and fruits needed? He did the same with the livestock keepers, they who knew best how to dry and salt grains. He went to the pottery district of the capital of Niani and spoke with the makers of pots. How much time would be needed to deliver all that was required of them? His quests were replicated across the entire kingdom, as other lords took up King Abubakar's command and did resource collections within their own dominions. Each lord delivered upon the royal court, camel loads upon camel loads of supplies, which were duly recorded and kept in safety. As each of them brought their supplies, they went to King Abubakar's court and wished him their regards for the trying journeys to come. Musa spent countless hours consulting with wise men and women. After daily tasks were done, he reported to the king about the progress made. The king and his brother would then share a meal and sit by the fireside, talking for hours, as Siddiqui played them a tune on his kora. On such nights, they would exchange stories from their childhood days till the present and about future prospects. Finally, after 6 months, all the resources needed to achieve the king's vision were ready. "We are ready to build enough ships to reach the other side of the world," Musa told King Abubakar, who promptly responded by excitedly saying, "And so we shall."
In the next episode, we detail how the courageous fleet of King Abubakari goes into the ocean. They build a large fleet filled with supplies to last them many moons. But is this enough to ensure a successful voyage? Keep watching Timbuktu Tales to get the answers to this question and watch more amazing tales from Africa. Is there anything that fascinated you about this story? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section below. Also remember to like, share and subscribe to Timbuktu Tales.